Hello, everyone, and welcome to the beginning of the end of the last days. It's an exciting hour in history, and I hope you're having fun with it because you don't need to be worried. Because if you're actually tuning into this broadcast, then everything is going to be okay. We're going to figure this out together. We're going to talk to the best people that will inform us, and we're going to make it through all of it together as one in unity. I love to read from my dad's Bible to start this show, and I opened it up, and it just kind of fell open to an interesting spot in Revelations 8. My dad has underlined many things, and it says, actually, let's go to Revelations, the previous chapter 7, verse 14. It says, "And I said unto him, Sir, thou knowest. And he said to me, These are they which came out of great tribulation and have washed their robes, and they have been made white in the blood of the Lamb." And so my dad underlined that. And I think, tribulation, wow, aren't we all in a whole lot of tribulation? It feels like it, that we are. But, there's some descriptions that make you think it's going to get a little bit worse. I don't know. I'm ready. I'm not worried, and I'm going to have fun with it. So we have an incredible guest, and she is basically from overseas. Where is she coming today from, JT? In New York. Oh, in New York? Okay, well, we'll ask her when she comes on. I thought you were going to be more knowledgeable, but you're no help at all. Well, she's written a book. It's called Follow the Pipelines, Uncovering the Mystery of a Lost Spy and the Deadly Politics of the Great Game for Oil. In Canada, oil and gas, very important to us. We have a prime minister that doesn't really support that. So I just want to welcome Charlotte on to the show. Thank you for waiting in the background. We had a few issues getting your feed set up, but we are ready to go, Charlotte. So tell me about your book, the background, what caused you to understand oil and gas, and why that became such an important issue to you that you have written a book about it.
Wow. Well, you mentioned your dad, and my book originated because I was investigating the death of my father. He was America's first master spy in the Middle East during World War II, and he was sent to Lebanon. And one of the things that I started to investigate was his last mission before he met his death in a plane crash. His last mission was to Saudi Arabia. And so I looked into that more. Like, first of all, I had his last letters home to my mother and his last report. And I found out that his mission to Saudi Arabia was not only top secret, but hugely important for the future of the United States. Because what he was looking at was what was the route of the Trans-Arabian pipeline going to be. This was a pipeline that was connecting Saudi oil, running overland across the Saudi peninsula with a terminal point on the Mediterranean. And you will see a map basically that shows that route. It's on the cover of my book. Right. So if you look at that, you see the dotted line there. That is the projected Trans-Arabian pipeline. And one of the things I learned was its terminal point was either going to be in Lebanon or Palestine, soon to become Israel. So I thought, well, that's really interesting, given all the conflict that's going on there. So effectively, the Trans-Arabian pipeline catapulted the United States into becoming a major world power. Saudi oil helped fuel the recovery in Europe. It also, Saudi oil would replace a lot of the coal that was run by communist coal miners in Europe. So it was looked at as a major new Western American controlled energy source. And another thing I found out was that all of our erstwhile allies, and that would mean the British, the French, and the Soviets, were actually competing against us, not only during the war, but immediately afterward. And one of my father's messages when he was sent over there was there's going to be a real free-for-all for oil. Why is oil so important? I often ask this to audiences, and they'll give me different explanations. But the one explanation that they often miss, and I can't blame them for it because it's not often told. Oil was then and is still now the main fuel of the military. So when you start tracking the role of oil in American foreign policy, and especially towards the Middle East, you'll just find out that there's all this incredible competition. Who gets the oil? Who controls it? And, you know, if you're going to make use of it, it's got to be transported. And the major, most efficient way of doing that was via pipeline, and it still is today. So that's when I got onto the whole concept of pipelines playing a lot more in many of our endless wars and our conflicts in the Middle East, and now Ukraine, for instance. I mean, now it's just so obvious. You know, as soon as the Germans closed down the Nord Stream 2 pipeline that was going to be funneling additional natural gas to Germany, they closed it down right away. And so everyone's hustling around to find natural gas. Now, natural gas, mind you, is very important too, because it fuels our homes and our industries and so on. It does not fuel all of our military, though. And let me go back to that again. It was in 1911 when Churchill decided, he was First Lord of the Admiralty at the time. He was in charge of the British Navy. He realized that he had to convert all of the British Navy from coal to oil as the major fuel. And he openly admitted that Britain would have to fight over, quote, a sea of troubles to get the oil, because Britain didn't have it. It had a lot of coal, but it didn't have oil. So one of its first targets, next to Iran, where it got its first hold on oil, was Iraq. So if you study World War I, we'll see a major part of that is Britain's effort to control the oil of Iraq. And they succeeded. And they did it. And then they had to figure how are we going to pipe it? How are we going to pipe it to markets? And that's when they realized that the best place to send it to would be either, well, actually at that time, would be to Haifa, Palestine. So I'm giving you some deep history there, but if you read my book, you will be able to follow it all the way up, particularly with a focus on the endless wars that happened post 9/11. And you'll be able to understand Ukraine better as well, which I'm happy to expound upon, but I leave that up to you.
Yeah, no, I definitely want to hear that connection. And also, I hope you'll eventually tell us more about the plane crash that took your father. But yes, let's start with Ukraine and the connection with oil there.
Well, of course, it always helps to look at a map, and there is a map in my book that shows Crimea, for instance, and the Black Sea. And what I have learned is that just about anybody who cares to get involved in oil politics, they were looking at Ukraine, because Ukraine, well, first of all, the Crimea is a peninsula that sits on the Black Sea, and huge quantities of oil and natural gas exist in the Black Sea. So when Putin annexed Crimea in 2014, that gave him even more access to the oil and gas in the Black Sea. And there are like 3 Russian pipelines that run underneath the Black Sea, and they funnel oil to Turkey and through Turkey to Europe. So that was in 2014. I've been able to find documentation that just about anybody who cared about oil and gas were trying to get their hands on the oil and natural gas of, guess where? Eastern Ukraine. You see, this is never reported in the press. The strategic interests that exist in Ukraine. Ukraine has the largest deposits of natural gas and oil in Europe, not counting Russia. And there is documented evidence that both the Trump administration and even before that, the Obama administration were eyeing the Caspian Sea. The Caspian Sea, which is also adjacent to this whole region, was deemed to be the next new Middle East. And again, they had to figure out, all right, so we're going to get our hands on the Caspian Sea, but how are we going to pipe it? And one of the ideas was to pipe it through Ukraine. So I'm just saying that this is a whole basically hidden history. The part that's out in the open was the closing down of the Nord Stream 2 pipeline from Russia that would go under the Baltic Sea and end up in Germany. The U.S. has been opposed to that for a long time. The U.S. has wanted for Europe to be less reliant on Russian oil and natural gas. This is what I call the great game for oil. They're all competing against each other. And, the idea is if country X gets it, then we're out of luck. So we got to get it before they get it. And when you hear, even today, when you hear President Biden saying, we're going to be in here for as long as it takes. Well, what do they mean by that? I mean, it hasn't been settled. Who is going to control the oil and natural gas of Eastern Ukraine? I think that is what's caused the delays in the peace agreements. So anyway, there was people say that Ukraine is very corrupt, which it is. Well, what made it corrupt? I would imagine that there were a lot of deals that were in the offing, and it just came down to who was going to be in control, whether it was going to be a pro-Western president or a pro-Russian president, and people can review that whole history. But I'm sorry to say that is the ugly truth, because once that Nord Stream 2 pipeline was shut off, then you started to, the Russians retaliated, and Europe realized that they had to search for other sources of natural gas. And so there begins to be a mad scramble. They're looking at Africa right now. There's a big effort to get a hold of the oil and natural gas of Africa. And deals were cut, and Biden had to go hat in hand to Saudi Arabia to try to get him to increase the amount of oil that was being shipped because there was the possibility of an energy crisis and huge gas prices. So, I mean,
can I ask
morality
you something? Right. Can I ask you something about the Nord Stream 2? Yeah. So what do you think happened? How did it get blown up down there? Who do you think did it? Do you have any guesses?
Well, I mean, there's what would appear to be the obvious, frankly, which would be that the U.S. did it only because of historical precedent. And that is, there's a long history of the U.S. being opposed to the Nord Stream 2 pipeline. Several years before this war broke out, they did everything they could do to stall its completion. But it was finally going, despite all these delays, it was going to be completed in August of 2022. So as soon as the Russians invaded, then the very first sanction that happened, and this is in February 2022, was the U.S. was able to convince Germany to scuttle it, even though Germany was all set to bring it online. then when we fast forward to, months later, and the pipeline was actually sabotaged. So given the history of U.S. efforts to stop it because they wanted Europe to be less reliant on the Russians, that's the obvious explanation. And Seymour Hersh did his expose, which then there was a debunking against it. Now some people are saying, well, maybe some Ukrainians did it, a rogue group of Ukrainians. But it seems to me that it would not be in Russia's interest to sabotage its own pipeline. I mean, that just doesn't make sense to me.
Right.
I don't know what you think or what your viewers
I totally
think.
agree. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
I think our viewers are probably online. We've got a whole bunch of comments coming in. How are they on this issue, JT? Yeah, definitely in agreement because it doesn't make sense. And so that was just pretty hysterical as we all watched the news and the Biden administration saying ridiculous things. So if I could ask you, in light of the importance of oil in our world, there's this huge push to green energy, or like having cars that are electric and not powered by oil and gas. We don't even have the ability to replace all the cars in the world that we would need to replace. It's kind of dumb. But that is interesting as well, that it's like trying to get us away from the use of oil.
Well, I actually think it's frankly imperative. I mean, we are living right now in a cataclysmic climate change. We've got, by the way, the fires of Canada came as far as Vermont, and I stepped out, which is where I live, Vermont, way northeastern United States. And I went to walk my dog, and I thought, where is that fire coming from? And then I learned it was blowing from Canada's wildfire.
Right.
So you've got that catastrophe. You got the horrendous fires on the West Coast. You got the extreme heat in the southern part of the state. And now in Vermont, we just had a horrendous flooding in Vermont and parts of New York. We had it in 2011. And that was Tropical Storm Irene, and now we've had it again, and it's widespread, and our capital city is completely flooded. So I understand.
Now, if I could just present something different, though,
Sure.
to you, first of all, we have some premiers calling because we have an unprecedented amount of fires that are being set. And there is a call for a strong inquiry in Alberta regarding arson. And we've never had this. And when you look at the Canadian landscape and the American, you're going to have to come to the conclusion that I guess climate change only affects with fires Canada and not the United States, because the United States has so many less fires. Just look over the border. I mean, something's up with all of that. And I was just listening to an expert on climate, and basically when they started, looking at climate, we're basically within 1 to 2 degrees of many, many, many years ago. So, the jury is out on all of this nonsense, because sometimes people that have different agendas want to create a different scenario, and we've had a real problem with all these fires for sure. And what they're having a problem with is there's nothing that shows there was no lightning, there was no, and there's signs that arson has been a big part of it. So I just want to inform you of that, so you'll have that.
That's certainly that's very interesting. That has not been
reported in mainstream media. Yes.
Well, that's true. But
Yeah.
the horrendous fires. I mean, there's drought. I mean, there is serious drought, and that has afflicted California, and so the fires were the big issue, and then it continues to be the flooding as well. There's so much. Look, I'm a believer in climate change. I got to tell you. I'm kind of
not. Yeah. So, but you know what? I really respect your opinion, and I I value the opinions of others, but I listen to all of these climate people as well, completely debunking it with their temperature sources, and all of that. And so, yeah, but that's
I mean, the
okay. I like
climate
having
people,
discussion.
we've got all sorts of documentation that the big oil lied to us about. They knew that climate change was coming, but they didn't want to, it's going to affect their profit levels. So they did. I mean, it's well established. We've even had the heads of ExxonMobil and Chevron, for instance, put before Congress, and also documentation revealing that they knew climate change was going to happen because of CO2. And I know there are other people saying it's not CO2. I think emissions. I think it is that, and we're all suffering terribly from it right now.
I wanna show you something. So it's a really tiny little video. I hope everyone can see it. Okay, so I get all these people that they send me stuff, right? I think it's not very long. Let's listen to one section here.
And we've been warming now for the last sort of 150 years or so, give or take, since about 1850. There's something interesting about that period, isn't it? Tell us about that, because why do they choose
So
that
warming
point?
since 1850.
Because it's the lowest point. We are at 1 degree above the coldest it's been in the last 10,000 years.
Let's just repeat that. I mean, that's remarkable.
And the other remarkable thing is it's 2 degrees cooler than the warmest it's been in the last 10,000 years, which is the Egyptian and the Minoan period.
So this is really important, folks, because this is data, and that essentially the IPCC, they always talk about that we are 1 degree higher than the pre-industrialization period, that 150 years ago. But what you're saying, Brian, is that was the lowest point in the last 10,000 years.
Correct.
So in a sense, that's why we shouldn't be panicking, and that it's been much warmer in 2 or 3 previous periods.
Yes, and in the last interglacial, which was 130,000 years ago, when the country is pretty much where it is now, about 50 degrees north from the equator, there were hippopotami and elephants on the banks of the River Thames.
That would be quite a sight now, wouldn't it?
And it's well known, this is natural history, and it was 6 degrees warmer than it is now. And there were humans wandering around the place, presumably hunter-gathering happily. We're a tropical
So I won't go on any more about it. I'll just let it go. But it's interesting that it depends where we all look to get, our information. And we've got all these people that are, that have very differing views. And so that's why I just won't commit to believing in any, because agendas start pushing, oh, now we need all your money. Like our prime minister said, what we learned from COVID, we are now going to apply to the climate agenda, the new crisis. So what we learned, now what did they learn in COVID that they want to apply to the climate agenda? Our prime minister is trying to destroy the oil and gas industry, and this has brought hardship to our countries, and we have very clean oil actually in Canada, but so probably maybe we're a bit different on that. But I love what you're saying about the fight for it and how that has affected the world situation and even wars. Amazing.
Now the role in wars is not what is, sorry, let me try that again. The role of oil and pipelines in causing these endless wars is not revealed. To this day, it is not revealed in mainstream media. Those of us who know about it try to write about it. And I think I'm fairly unique in focusing on the pipelines. And there's a economist I think he's based in Toronto, named John Foster, who's written a book about it, about the role of pipelines in endless wars. So,
agreed. Agreed.
I mean, it continues to be the most important natural resource in the world. There's absolutely no doubt about it. and it's going to take time to wean off. But I, for one, do believe that we need green energy, and not even green energy is perfect. And now there's a whole thing about lithium. My God, are we going to have wars for lithium in order to feed the electric cars? So it continues. It's the great game, and there's just so much money in it and so much profit that they will fight vicious underground wars. They will fight propaganda wars, and I don't blame viewers for being confused, or angry or feeling like they're not getting the whole story, because they're definitely not getting the whole story. I just let's just focus on the role in endless wars. That is a tragedy in and of itself, in my humble opinion.
It really is.
I've shown the link to the problems in Israel and Palestine. There's a whole lot of oil and natural gas that was discovered in the Mediterranean Sea, and that's right off the coast of Israel. But also the Gaza Strip, which is the Palestinians, also abuts part of that oil field. So there have been those struggles, and I was able to link in my book that the Israeli attacks on Gaza that happened, a decade ago, was primarily to prevent the Palestinians from having their own economy. Israel aspires to be an energy corridor. And again, look at the maps. I've got 12 maps in those books, and those maps tell the story. So Israel wants to be an energy corridor, okay? And by the way, it's going to be, and it is exploiting a lot of the oil and natural gas that's been found in the Mediterranean Sea. So if it had its way, it would run pipes right up through the countries that are north of Israel. But what are those countries? Lebanon and Syria, and they are now failed states. They have been destroyed through endless wars. Anyway, Israel has cut some deals with the Greeks, I believe, because Cyprus is in the midst of all this oil and natural gas. So they're going to be fighting over territory. Then we've got Turkey, of course. Erdogan, in a way, he's like Putin. He's pretty much become a master of the great game. By the way, don't ever underestimate Putin. Former KGB guy, he understands the game. And another person that understands the great game is Erdogan, because he's well placed there. He is a recipient of oil run through 3 pipelines under the Black Sea. And so he can distribute it or he can cut it off. So, the NATO powers have to give heed to him, even though they're not entirely happy with him because he's authoritarian. But at any rate, that's what it's all about. And it's going to continue.
It's all about the oil.
Yeah, it really is. And different parts of your continent and ours are dependent on it. So I understand why people would be concerned that there's efforts to, I don't know if you want to say shut down. I would think the efforts are to wean off, because they know they can't totally shut down. It's impossible. There's no way that green energy can catch up that fast. But right now in America, did you see those pictures of, I don't know if your viewers happen to see the pictures of Manhattan, and the background is orange. It's an orange sky. It's amazing.
Fires in Canada.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's really amazing.
Yes. Yeah, it is. And it would be really super cool if we could absolutely ensure that people aren't starting fires because they have a certain agenda. I mean, it's very shocking. People are really calling for inquiries. Very hard to get it. Very hard to get this put into mainstream media for some reason. We know that in Canada, our mainstream media is bought by the Liberal government. They pay them well over $400 million, and they tout the Liberal agenda like nobody's business. Mainstream media is bought out. We're totally going woke. We've got all of these things that they're pushing and propagandizing. We've got, it goes not just from oil and climate change issues, it goes to what they're teaching kids in school about their gender. It goes to what the kind of pictures that they are allowing. And I know in the United States, there's a big uproar about this. We literally have the most disgusting, disturbing, drawn pictures of people having sex, and you're allowed to put this in grade 5 and into our libraries. And nobody's saying a word. It's like, oh, respect that, and they're literally bringing an era of, decriminalizing pedophilia and normalizing it. And so all of this, it just gets, we have a serious problem going on in our world. And here at our show, like, we keep an eye on all of it. And so that's what, we really appreciate. Could you tell us, I know you have to go because you have a meeting that you've got to get to, but your father's plane crash, was there anything significant you found when you investigated how your dad died?
He died. There were 6 Americans on board. They had gotten onto the plane in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. They had a stopover in Eritrea, and then they were headed to Addis Ababa. And I found out that the reason they were headed to Addis Ababa is that the United States was going to set up a new airlines, and it was going to be managed by TWA, but it would be owned by the Ethiopian government. And what I learned is the British were totally opposed to this. You see, here's an example of our allies fighting against us in a subterranean way. The British controlled all aspects of Ethiopian life, and they so they were freaking out. Here comes these Americans, and by the way, setting up a independent airlines, which would become Ethiopian Airlines, by the way, which has been in the news recently because of some devastating crashes much later. But in those days, it was going to prevent the control of British over all aspects of communication in Ethiopia. Also, the airlines, they were able to surveil regions. Like there was an aerial camera on the plane. And I believe one of the purposes of that flight was to take photographs of how to link oil by pipeline to the Red Sea. That's what that aerial camera was about. And there was smashed telecommunications equipment also on the plane. So I have to say, I can't totally prove it, but my top suspect, because I do believe it was sabotage, and I go into that in great detail in the book, were the British, our allies. But the other top suspect were the Russians and the Soviet. And I pull it all together with one person. His name was Kim Philby. He was the most famous spy of the 20th century. And what makes him interesting is that he was spying for the Soviets,
right,
while not telling the British.
Too. Yeah.
Okay. And so for him to be effective, he had to deliver to his masters. Well, what a coup he could have delivered by sabotaging that plane. Because not only the British, but also the Soviets had their eyes on Ethiopia. You see, the Americans had just granted a new oil concession to Ethiopia, and that was another thing that got the Brits really upset. So, the Brits and the Soviets benefited from this plane crash, and they were all top secret people on board. It was a great coup. But I can't totally prove it, and I wish I had more on the Philby connection. I know that Kim Philby, he was my father's exact counterpart. He was stationed in Turkey and was in charge of counterintelligence. And what is counterintelligence? It's spy hunting. You know, you're protecting your intelligence from someone penetrating you. So Philby was up in Turkey. My father was based in Lebanon. They had to have known each other, and you cannot find documentation proving that they knew each other. But I knew that Philby was messing around in Lebanon right around the time that this, right 6 months before the plane crash. And then Philby went and made a visit to Saudi Arabia also, because his father was an advisor to King Ibn Saud. I mean, the intrigue is incredible.
Wow.
And yeah, so I'm giving you some heads up clues.
Make a movie out of
that's
this.
it.
I hope that your book becomes a movie, fascinating.
Well, wouldn't I hope? I don't know. We'll see.
It's really quite the story. And I guess I really love my father so much, and he died a year and 3/4 ago. And so I would be very devastated if something like that had happened to my family. And so my heart goes out to you about having to,
I was only 6 weeks old. I never knew my father. I was only 6 weeks old.
Okay, so good. All right, I see. I see.
For me, exploring what happened to him, I was also able to explore through reports. I was able to get access to almost all of his reports because they were declassified, believe it or not, and sitting in the National Archives. I feel like writing my personal story about the National Archives.
That's amazing.
But I was able to, and then I sued the CIA to get more information, and I did get more information. And sort of an interesting conclusion to all of this is that the CIA eventually came around to me and said they were recognizing my father, even though he died just a few months before the CIA was formed. He was with the Central Intelligence Group, the predecessor, but they honored him. In Langley, Virginia, they have a big wall where they put all the fallen stars. These are men and women who fell in the line of duty. And they honored him as the fallen first star. And they invited the whole family there. And they told me they were going to name a room after my father. And part of it was because he was very unusual. He was an Islamic scholar. And he read the Quran. He spoke Arabic. This is something that's important, that's missing in today's world. I think they're coming to recognize how important it is to understand the culture, and that's what he did. So anyway, that's another part of the story.
Wow. I just love it. You're absolutely fascinating. And thank you for all the research that you've done. And may you be blessed in finding out how to help the world and to find all the different perspectives that are happening. I certainly encourage that you find those people that are understanding who's on what side and what's being reported and not being reported. And you're on to something great. Thank you very much for taking time with us today. We sure appreciate it.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate it. I send my love to
Charlotte.
The Canadian people.
Thank you. And God bless. Take care.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Absolutely fascinating. What a journey that particular woman has had, in investigating her father's death. She was only 6 weeks old, and into oil and gas. So very interesting, very different perspective. And I just thank Toby for that guest that we've been able to have on today. I want to show you something quickly. Have you seen The Sound of Freedom? I hope that if it's playing in your area, I know it's still in Chilliwack at the Galaxy Cinema in British Columbia, and it's at different places. It's well worth seeing. I absolutely loved it. It was riveting, dramatic, it was emotional, and it wasn't too much. You know what I mean? We know that sex trafficking is a terrible assault. It's evil in our world, and we want to be able to know about it, but not, it's so painful. Who can even stand all of this stuff? So let me show you a little interview between Vincent Oshana and Lauren Chen discussing the attacks, the mainstream media attacks that have come on the Sound of Freedom. Take a look.
By the way, this movie was they actually have footage of everything that happened of Tim Ballard because it happened.
Did you see the movie?
I saw the movie.
Oh, you saw it? Wow.
I saw the movie, and I was telling Pat some crazy moments are where they actually had footage, undercover footage or surveillance footage of people in third world countries and stuff going up to people like a kid wanders in the street. They grab them in a van and they're gone. It's not a conspiracy theorist. And then it begs the question when people are like, why does one side want open borders? And why, if you think about it, Pat, there's a fact. 350,000 unaccompanied minors come across the border since 2021 till right now. 85,000 of them have gone missing. And then that begs the question, why is one side just like, no, the border's secure. Mayorkas, that little rat. No, the border's open. That is just an inventory of just human beings coming in. And it's like for them to say that it's QAnon and it's fake, it's like they don't want people messing with their influx of children. It's a huge problem. And yes, they made money off this movie, but now look how many people are talking about sex trafficking and these kids. And at least somebody now is opening their mouth. And by the way, this movie was made 5 years ago. I don't know if you guys, this movie's old. Now
which movie?
Sound of Freedom. Yeah.
Nobody wanted to put out. Go ahead, Lauren. Go ahead.
Well, it was made by Fox before the Disney acquisition. So then Disney they essentially didn't release it. They didn't want to release it. They sold it to this other studio, and the studio actually had to crowdfund to get a theatrical release. So that's kind of what's ironic about the fact that it did beat Indiana Jones at least for one weekend, is that this could have been money going to Disney, but it's also kind of suspicious. Why didn't Disney want to release this movie? Was it not in line with their branding?
And by the way, isn't Disney a kids channel? Isn't it about kids and protecting kids? So why wouldn't you want to protect kids worldwide? Isn't that kind of weird?
Oh, isn't it? Isn't it kind of weird? You know what I'm coming to think? Anyone who doesn't stand behind getting these sex traffickers put behind jail bars and taken down, and the protection of children, it's because somehow they're dirty. Somehow they've got their fingers in it. They're either getting kickbacks, they're getting payment, or they're just sexual perverts themselves. And Disney, I mean, please be careful of going to any Disney shows. You better have it. You better get the write-up. JT and I would always like to look at, there was a group, and they assess movies from a Christian perspective. So they'll tell you about the F-bombs, they'll tell you about the swearing, they'll tell you about, drug use or sexuality in the movies before you ever go see it. And so you can see that, someone will address all of the things that Disney's been putting in their movies, where they've been propagandizing, the transgender issue, where, pushing gay and lesbian relationships and stuff like that. And hey, if you want to expose your kids to all that, you just go right ahead. But many people do not. And so they are abandoning Disney. Tons of people have canceled their subscription to anything that has Disney on it. And, so let's look at this story. Washington Examiner article about the DOJ removing child sex trafficking info from its website. Like, what is going on with that? So the Department of Justice quietly removed significant portions of its page on child sex trafficking, including information on international sex trafficking of minors, domestic sex trafficking of minors, and child victims of prostitution. What? While it is unclear what prompted the revisions, conservatives pointed to the changes as a sign the Biden administration is not taking crimes surrounding child exploitation seriously. Okay, so Representative Anna Paulina Luna tied the Justice Department's website change to the Department of Health and Human Services losing track of 85,000 migrant children who were released from government custody, including some forced into child labor, per a New York Times investigation. This is so bad, so sick, so dirty. And the Biden crime family with Hunter Biden and his disturbing videos with his sexual antics and his nude little parts apparently all over the place, and his drug use and his involvement in perhaps sex trafficking. What? So all of it's dirty. We need the entire system to collapse. We need so much exposure to this evil that these entities, this Babylon, must fall. May it fall in an hour. Recently, we read from Revelations 18, where Babylon falls in an hour. And so I pray that it does do that. Before we go, video, Nick Hudson here. He's an expert on data, and he's behind Panda, I think. But he's detailing how you know when something is a scam. We better all know this. Take a look.
The general rule of thumb that I believe everybody should adopt is that if any problem is being presented as a global crisis, then it is a scam. And the pattern that we are confronted with is really the fabrication of global crises. The presentation either of non-existent problems or small local problems as being general global crises. That fabrication followed by the assertion that the only solutions that are permissible are global ones that require a global authority, global control. That is the general pattern that we are up against. The COVID policy response was one of those. Look at what happened to countries like Sweden or Tanzania, who tried to push back against the orthodoxy, the new orthodoxy. And the climate crisis, the climate change crisis, is another example where we are told that the biggest threat to the world is this molecule, CO2, and that an increase in the level of this molecule will cause an increase in temperature, and that temperature increase will be bad for us, and that the only thing we can do is consume fewer fossil fuels and less energy. That's fitting the pattern exactly. The other things you can observe is, instead of presenting science as an ongoing, evolving activity, it is presented in terms of static knowledge, consensus. And you see the cancellation and censorship of dissident voices rather than engagement with them. These patterns are proof of a scam. That is what people need to understand. Whenever something is presented as the science, as a consensus, it is a scam. You do not have to go and get engaged in all of the minutiae of the scientific principles and the models and the measurements at all. You can know with absolute certainty that you are dealing with a scam when dissent is suppressed.
Isn't that fascinating? I mean, wow. And I just think it's so true. Like, you know, this is the problem that we have with the global climate crisis and all of that. And recently I was looking, as I said to our last guest, you know, who maybe, you know, we had a disagreement there. But nonetheless, I like to hear voices, and I'm interested in her perspective on oil and all of that. But, you know, all of the fires that were going on in Canada, like they're everywhere, right? And then there's a few fires that are happening in the States, just a few. And that is like testimony to the fact something's going on. And here we were having, you know, we've been having elections and different things, like, you know, with in Alberta, there was an election between the, you know, the Conservatives and NDP government out there, and with different thoughts on oil and gas. And all of a sudden, oh, the fires, you know, just erupt. And that's why Premier Danielle Smith, you have to give her credit, was calling for a real look into arson, because this is not climate change. This is a pile of nonsense, and they can just stop it because we're not buying it. And that's why I played that little clip of, you know, those people on this video showing that, you know, we're all within 1 to 2 degrees. There's no crisis. So stop the nonsense. Russell Brand, so he's a comedian, and he's kind of funny. Sometimes I find him funny, sometimes not. But Russell Brand talking about why freedom of speech is important. Take a look.
What we're witnessing now is an attempt to extract, diminish, deplete Elon Musk's ability to present counter-narratives to you. Even if you disagree with Elon Musk about, I don't know, free speech or conservatism or whatever it is, I don't know anymore because I don't believe in any of those systems or any of those alliances. I've just completely lost faith in all of it. You have to respect the principle of allowing people to communicate openly. Of course fascism is bad. Of course hate speech is bad. Prejudice, bigotry, violence, terrorism, these things are all bad. But what I think is happening is hate speech and free speech are becoming conflated in order to facilitate the new category of misinformation, disinformation to justify censorship. And once that happens, it will happen arbitrarily, not arbitrarily actually, it will happen at the whim of the powerful. Already we know, because of Edward Snowden, the state and big tech are collaborating to share and exchange your information. The problem with Twitter is not, oh no, there's hate speech on there. The problem is he's not complying with their agenda. Just think about it for a moment. What do you think they really care about? Hate speech, yeah, you know, which is bad. We all know it's bad. Or not complying with their agenda. Just reflect on it for a while.
Exactly. And you know who is the most hateful? Well, actually, it's their themselves, their own words. The left, they're the ones who are hateful. And it's funny how exactly what they are, they push it on everyone else. You're not inclusive. You know, you're not diverse. Oh, well, how come you're not including me in your diversity scheme? My thoughts, my strong religious convictions and values, the Muslims' strong religious convictions and values on gender, the Sikhs, you're not including them in your inclusivity. No, you've got your small little group of woke chanters, right? And you're all talking that you're inclusive, right? No, what people want is align with my agenda, or we are going to, power steer this thing over you. And that's what's happening in our world. And a lot of terrible things are happening because we are not speaking out. We are not using our voice. We are not using our ability to communicate, to just firmly, squarely stand in our truth, speak the truth, stand up to the bullies. The bullies are the anti-bullying crowd, by the way. Oh, they will go after you, It's just so ironic, isn't it? But what we have to do is speak out. Now, we have a big problem with our schools. Get your kids out of schools. I don't know how you can leave your kids in Babylon. Be warned, everyone. It might mean you have to change your life. It might mean you have to give up one income and downsize. Protect your children at all costs, because if they go to Babylon institutions, they will come out as Babylonians. Do not be shocked when you have allowed the state to indoctrinate and propagandize your children that they come out as something you do not recognize. Stand strong, everyone. They are after the children. They're coming for the children. They're telling your children lies that they can change their gender, that gender is fluid. Maybe they're a transgender. Respect all of this nonsense. And by the way, when a little boy comes into your bathroom, little girls at school, you just have to turn a blind eye and it's totally fine. And into your change rooms. And then, later on in life, if you're in a professional sport, they should be allowed right into your private spaces as well. I have a phrase I would like to say right now, but I cannot, because I am a godly Christian woman, and the Lord will not like it if I talk like that. But my righteous anger, my ire is up over this. We have got to rise. We have got to speak and stand. Our children are at stake, and maybe it's your grandchildren now. Stand, speak, say everything that you can, because the GSAs in the schools, whether they call them gender sexuality alliances or gay straight alliances or whatever they are, yeah, they're showing dildos and really inappropriate crap to your kids about how to have anal sex, about how to, do all this stuff. And your kids can be as young as 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. It shouldn't be at any age. This is called being a sexual predator. When you talk to minors about sex, you're a predator. Stop it. Stop talking to kids about sex. You perverted, sick people. Stop. Stop. That is a criminal offense. And parents don't even know this is going on. They find out by accident. And then you school board trustees, you're defending it. You're perverts too. You're in this too. It makes you look like you're part of the problem when you're not standing against sick, perverted books being given to little kids, and you as a school board trustee cannot stand against it. This is what happened in southern Manitoba. A brave woman named Laura-Lynn gets up. She reads from books. I have the video. I don't even want to play it for you. It's too disturbing. This is in children's books. And you know what? The sick, disgusting school trustees in southern Manitoba at the Prairie Rose School in that little area, they all voted no. Everyone needs expression. You know, it's all okay. We just have to honor everyone's expression. Of the perverts? We have to honor the expression of perverts? I have words that I cannot speak right now. You will meet your maker one day, and you will pay for your assault on children, and you had the opportunity to stop it and you didn't. God help you. God help you. You will find your place in a very hot area one day. Pathetic. What's wrong with everybody? If you're a parent, start screaming bloody murder. Start going down to those schools, raising your voice, talking to the principal, and saying, if your teachers speak this or say this to my kids, I'm going to hold you personally responsible. And write up a contract to the principal, write up a contract personally to the teacher, and then sue the teacher and sue the principal. Forget about the whole school board and all of the things. Start suing the people that talked about perversion to your children. They are sexual predators, and they are going against the Criminal Code of Canada. And I'm sure if you're watching from the US, the UK, Australia, because we have people watching from all over the world, start using your criminal codes and start suing personally the teachers involved in this nonsense. Have your day in court with them. Unbelievable. So pathetic. My website is lauralynn.tv, and thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for supporting truth. I appreciate you being here. If you're able to help us to do it, we don't have anybody big helping me to yell every day. We just have ourselves. My husband helps me. And yeah, he says you're that he's usually why I'm yelling, and that is not true at all. He's amazing. So thank you for your support of this show. Please, people, rise up, do what you need to do. Protect yourselves as well in this day. I think they put the interest rate up yesterday or so in Canada. It's up to 5%. People are selling their homes. You're beginning to see more bankruptcies. You're beginning to see things that are going on. If you've got some solid real estate investment, hunker down, I guess, because not everybody is buying right now. If you can sell, you need to sell, then let's pray. We're actually really praying for friends of ours right now who are trying to sell their property. And they say we're praying for a miracle because, some parts of the market are soft. It depends. Whenever these interest rates go up, you have this season, But the thing is we have a much bigger problem than the real estate issue. We have a problem with our country, our leadership getting us into oodles of debt and printing money. So on the day when all of that comes home to roost, you do not want to be caught with a whole lot of cash. You want to make sure that you protected yourself. You can invest in real estate. You can invest in gold and silver. Real estate, I don't know. Is it going down? I think so, perhaps. But Sun City Silver and Gold, you could get some silver and gold buried in your backyard, sovereignize at protonmail.com. At least put it in a place where nobody knows where it is. And there's lots of ways to do that. And we can help with that. But at least protect yourself. So that's what we do. We're not, keeping, we get paid and everything, and we make sure that we are protecting our assets and our funds at this time. I want to leave you today with Luke 4. Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness. You know what's interesting? You might be going through a wilderness experience and you're wondering, have I done something wrong? Have I displeased God so incredibly that I'm in this wilderness experience? Jesus, full of the Holy Spirit, left the Jordan and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the enemy, by the Spirit. Sometimes God leads us into a wilderness season, led by the Spirit into a period of needing God, where rations are short. He didn't, Jesus basically went into the desert for 40 days. And he was hungry and thirsty. And there the devil tempted him, trying to get him to give up his power, as if Jesus ever would. Give up his power for what? For bread. I'll feed you, the devil said. I'll bring you this manna if you'll just, give up your kingdom. And Jesus said, "It is written, man shall not live on bread alone." And then the devil led him up to a high place and showed him in an instant all the kingdoms of the world. And he said to him, "I will give you all their authority and splendor." That's like if you own your house and somebody says, "Listen, I'm going to give you this house." Like Jesus already owned it all. Stupid, isn't it? "It has been given to me," he says, "and I can give it to anyone I want to. If you worship me, it will be yours." Jesus answered, "It is written, worship the Lord your God and serve him only." He did not even answer him. "The mountain of the Lord shall be raised." God, whenever the enemy has any authority at all, it is because God gave him the right to do it. He can revoke it. He can change it. He can bring down a kingdom in a moment. He can change a nation in a day. God can do anything he wants. But he says, worship the Lord your God and serve him only. Our job right now, as we're not sure about the rise and the fall of kingdoms and leaders, is to be in a state of worship. Because the Spirit of the living God has led us to a place where we are in a desert, Canada. It's not a bad place to be. Do you notice that there's a whole bunch of people that are beginning to talk about how there's little pockets of revival breaking out? There's little movements of the Spirit of God. Suddenly churches are a little bit more packed. Suddenly there's an outpouring of God's presence in certain areas. I heard of someone speaking about that in Saskatchewan today. And Art Lucier is going to be going to Saskatchewan to bring a powerful presence there with the Lord's help to bless the people. All is well. God is with us. He is our strength, our hope, our shield. And if he's brought us into a wilderness, if we are led here to this wilderness at this hour, led by the Spirit, then we can trust that as we worship him, as we honor God, he will bring us through. And when he does, it is going to be spectacular. God bless you. Have a great weekend. It's not easy to deliver the truth of what our sick world is doing, but for some of us, we feel that we have no choice. Because if we are silent about these abominable things, then we are letting evil go unchecked, and we cannot do that. For those of you wonderful people who are writing me and are sharing your encouragement, I am deeply grateful. Thank you for all the letters that you've been sending. Thank you for the donations and the support. I found out that in order to speak the truth, you have to become very, very strong. If you would go to my website at www.laura-lynn.tv, you'll find all of the ways that you can contact me. Remember, my friends, all is well. All is well. Thanks for joining me.